Hello and welcome to the Rise FinTech podcast. I'm your host, Daisy Hopkins. Rise is a global community of entrepreneurs and innovators working together with Barclays to create the future of financial services. In this special series, we meet entrepreneurs within our community to understand more about the founder journey, straight from the mouths of the people who are trying to disrupt the industry. This episode of the Founders Coffee Club podcast features two FinTech founders who will be diving into the topic of crowdfunding. First up, we have Lucy Mullins, co-founder and COO of Stepladder, a fast-growing, award-winning fintech company pioneering collaborative finance and revolutionizing the home buying process. Aside from Stepladder, Lucy is also an executive coach, having co-founded #RideTheWave, a coach training program to develop leaders and founders. Next up, we have Laurel Quinn, a mum, a dog lover, and the co-founder of Sustainably, a tech for good company. Laurel is the CEO of Sustainably, an automatic digital charity collection box that allows you to round up your spare change on card payments to donate to your charities you care about. I'm so excited to dive into crowdfunding with Laurel and Lucy, and we're going to be talking about all things crowdfunding, including the benefits, the challenges, best practices, and some advice for anyone thinking about exploring crowdfunding. Thanks for listening and enjoy the conversation. Hi Laurel, hi Lucy, welcome to the Rise FinTech podcast.
Hiya. Thanks for having us. Hi.
Thank you to both of you for being here. We're so happy to have you. And as this is the Founders Coffee Club podcast, we always kick off with a very important question. What is your tea or coffee order?
I love this question. I love tea. Today I'm on green tea with mint.
Ooh.
Yeah, I am having ginseng and matcha tea today for an extra zing.
Wow, that's very exotic. I was on holiday in Greece last week and discovered iced lattes, which has totally changed my life. So happy days. So today's topic is crowdfunding, and you're both here because you have experience in raising funds using this method of financing. And for me, I think the funding landscape for startups can be overwhelming because there's so many different options available to you and unwritten rules about what, when, where, why to go for each type of fundraising. And we previously recorded an episode on friends and family, as well as angel investment. And I think it's really important to produce content around the different types of funding options so that entrepreneurs are well informed and can make the best decision for their businesses as to what fundraising method suits them at that period of growth. So I think to kick off today, while we look at crowdfunding in its most simplest form, we'd love to unpack it as much as we can. And so the first thing that I'd love to kind of ask you both is, what is crowdfunding to you, and why would an entrepreneur use this type of fundraising?
Crowdfunding to me is really enabling you to grow your community of users who are really engaged in what you're doing as investors in the business. So it's a real way to bring that community along with you on the entire journey from kind of start to exit, which is super exciting for people who love your product to come along on that journey with you.
And we actually, for a similar reason, in that lovely word community, we bring people together to raise their property deposits. And our product is based on a sort of peer-to-peer lending where people put their money in a pot. And so crowdfunding felt like a lovely parallel to that in the fact that all of our customers, our members, enjoy helping each other. And also we're asking, well, how can I be a part of Stepladder? So for us, it was very accessible. You know, we're a fintech focused on helping people achieve their financial goals. And so, you know, not everybody can clearly make an investment of sort of £5,000, which is often the minimum for like a friends and family round or an angel round. And so it's really lovely to be able to make it more accessible. And so many of our members were so excited to be able to take part from £10. And they're like, wow, I actually own a bit of a company. So it's sort of the community piece and the accessibility piece for us. And then I guess the third reason of why an entrepreneur might use something like this is actually great PR. You know, it's something else to talk about in the media to your members, rather than just constantly, delivering your message about your product or your service. You can say, hey, we're raising and this is why we're doing it. So it's kind of a way to get paid for PR.
Yeah, thank you. And I think the concept of community and accessibility is coming through in both of your answers there. And the crowdfunding community has been growing, and the crowdfunding platforms have been on the rise in recent years. And one instance that kind of sticks out to me, famously when Monzo raised 20 million on Crowdcube in under 3 hours for its funding round in December 18. I think I read that they got to nearly 3 million in the first 60 seconds, clearly showing the demand there is here. Do you think that the reputation of crowdfunding has changed, and what are the benefits of using crowdfunding as your fundraising method?
I think crowdfunding has become more accessible. And I think, with those big headline grabbing ones like Monzo, where the average person who's maybe not that interested in technology or finance, goes, oh, but that's the bank I use and I can invest in them. Wow, that's quite cool. I think it's become just more kind of accessible and more well known. So I think it used to be thought of as quite risky and quite niche. I think people are aware of the risks, and I think we'll talk about later the kind of process that we've gone through as founders to do the raise. And actually the crowdfunding platforms put a lot of things in place, and there's a lot of risk warnings everywhere, so people are aware. Like, there's absolutely no guarantee you're going to get your money back. It's not a liquid investment. So I think it attracts a certain type of person. But I just think in terms of how the reputation of it has changed, it's just seen to be a lot more accessible, and people are able to own a part of the companies that they care about or that they are customers of.
Yeah, I think definitely crowdfunding has become much more mainstream. And I think something that people no longer fear kind of dipping their toe in. They want to invest in the brands that they use and that they love. For example, Monzo's a great example of that. And I think it's just brilliant that people have a really inexpensive way from £10 to invest in the brands that they really love. And yeah, I think for us, it's all about kind of enabling people to make that to do that really simply. So yeah, it's definitely much more mainstream than it was in the past, and much simpler for people to get involved. And I think the perception, obviously, people know it's risky, but they're still willing to kind of put money behind products and services that they really love.
Yeah, and that concept of it kind of becoming more mainstream, and therefore, it's a lot easier to take part in it. That's one of the key benefits of it. And we've been talking a lot about the benefits of crowdfunding, but I'm sure, like all forms of fundraising, there are some associated challenges. We're going through this form of fundraising as well. So could either of you kind of share, or did you encounter any kind of challenges or negative experiences?
There were some challenges, and I think it's the first time we'd done it. And I think if I went into this again, knowing those challenges would make it far less challenging. So hopefully what Laurel and I are about to share will help anyone listening. I think you've got to be prepared for, it is actually a lot of work. I think you want to have, as with any good team, you should have in your team somebody that's really good at the kind of detailed legal side of things and making sure that you're really clear on the fee structure, because there's normally a set fee for a portion of the money you raise and then a percentage fee for the rest of it. So you want to just be really clear on what all of that is, and you want to be really clear on, are you doing a straight equity raise, or are you doing it as like a convertible, an advanced subscription agreement with a discount? So you want to be clear on that side of things. So you need somebody in your team that understands that side of things, and it's not super complicated, but you just need to pay attention to it. And then the other side of things is you need excellent content creators, because you do need to kind of push that campaign on social pretty hard, and you need to make a really good video. So whichever platform you use, I think they want a really good quality video. And if you're quite small, as we are, in terms of kind of pumping money into marketing, you don't want to be spending, like £20,000 on some sort of marketing video. Like, we watched Monzo's one and we were like, oh, that's really cool, but how much money have they spent on that with an agency? So you need some in-house skills or some people you can call on to kind of make that video that you're going to need, and then be prepared for the kind of compliance side of things. We're a fintech, so we're kind of used to the compliance side of things, and we still found it extremely rigorous. So I think that's great for people that are investing in crowdfunding, because you're not allowed to say anything that's even not even misleading, but like we wanted to say there are 3.5 million first-time buyers in the UK. We had some research to show that, but the research didn't state that number exactly. We'd kind of derived it from some other numbers, so we had to change the video. So things that are like blatantly true, even if you can't share a piece of paper to reference that, then they won't let you say it. It's extremely strict.
I think the biggest challenge for anyone going into crowdfunding is that you really need to have a significant amount of your round raised before you actually start the crowdfund. So there is a lot of effort that goes into it before you even start the campaign. So I would urge anyone that's considering doing it to really think about the whole sort of experience and how they're going to raise that cornerstone investment, because people really tend to invest in the campaign once it gets to over 100%. And that's really when it starts moving. So really be aware of that going into it, that you kind of need to get that initial lead investor and all the terms and do all the legal work. And it can be quite an expensive way to fundraise. So just kind of coming into it eyes wide open, that is a lot of work to do before you start it, then to run the campaign, and then even closing it at the end with all the sort of legal work that has to be done.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, that's become very clear around all the planning that's required. And I think, with crowdfunding, it's not something you can just decide to do and make it happen overnight. I'd imagine there's a lot of hard work and time to make sure that it gets over the line. And so, we've talked on some of the very specific things around content creators, videos, understanding the fee structure and things like that. But how do you two, as founders, manage that end-to-end experience of crowdfunding?
So yes, managing the process end to end, I think you absolutely need that sort of project plan and a really clear kind of marketing plan of how you're going to push it out over the 6 to 8 weeks. Now, we raised with Cedars and they were really good at advising us and saying, like, don't run the campaign for too long. My instinct was like, let's leave it open, the more the merrier. But actually what they prefer you to do, and in their experience it works better, is kind of shorter, sharper. So there's like a pre-registration period and then the campaign opens. And so you really need to have that project plan that works alongside that. So I was thinking we'd do sort of slow and steady, wins the race, spread it out over the 6 to 8 weeks. But actually what really works is if you have a big pop at the beginning. So they want to see you up to 80% of your target within literally the first week. And then, and I don't know how other platforms work, but certainly how Cedars works is if you're over 80% in the first week, their algorithm pumps you to the top of their weekly newsletter. You show up at the top of their website. So you get a lot of extra benefit by having that pop. So there's a lot of kind of project management and time planning, which, to be honest, isn't massively my forte. So I struggled a bit with that. And if I did it again, I think I'd actually have one of the team who's much better at that project management, kind of really scheduling all of that in. But think about kind of the big effort being in the planning and lead up, and then that first couple of weeks, and then you've kind of got the momentum and it keeps going. So yeah, I think you absolutely need the right people around you. It was a lot of work on top of kind of day-to-day founder life, but my co-founder Matthew was amazing, and he kind of took over a lot of my operational stuff and said, like, I'm going to run the business, you run the crowdfunding campaign. And I would really recommend that if you're lucky enough to have a co-founder, that one person focuses on this as a project and one person kind of runs the business.
Yeah, first of all, it's a really big team effort, so you cannot do it on your own. It really is a big job. So from your PR, from your investor outreach, from creating all your emails and your investor updates, from responding to questions from your investors, creating your campaign assets, your video, your script. I mean, there is so many things to do. So it's definitely a team effort. You definitely have to get help from people who know what they're doing if you can. The platforms themselves, we used Crowdcube, and they were super helpful in helping us along that journey. And then we also worked with an agency that helped us on all aspects of it, that was really experienced in helping startups crowdfund. So I think using as much experience as you can is can only set you on the right footing, and obviously having that lead investor is really critical to all. And it is a kind of every day you have stuff to do on your crowdfunding campaign. So for a month before, the month during, and then several weeks after you will be doing this. So just bear in mind that it does take a long time, and it is not just a one-person job. It is a team effort.
Thank you so much for that insight. That's really, really interesting. And that kind of leads me on to our last question, because given everything that's happened with the pandemic, I think the investment landscape's been really hard on founders who are searching for funding. So if you could give one piece of advice to someone, an entrepreneur thinking about exploring crowdfunding, what would it be?
Yeah, I think there are so many opportunities now to connect and engage with investors that maybe didn't exist pre-pandemic, where you might have to attend in person. So, really leverage your network to connect and reach out to people who are going to be engaged in your product. I think once you start building momentum and get the first couple of investors, then it's a really, really great story. But I think using all the channels that are available to us and the ability to hop on a call with an investor now is just so much easier than it was in the past. So yeah, I would definitely explore crowdfunding as a really great route to build your community around your product, if that is the type of product that you're building. But yeah, use your network and get in front of as many investors as you can, with Zoom and other amazing tools that we have at our disposal. So yeah, it's definitely opened doors from being able to connect and without attending those events that might just be a bit more inaccessible to be attending every single day. You can now just hop onto your Zoom calls. So yeah, just get out there, be visible, and connect, engage as many people as you can. LinkedIn is obviously a great tool for doing that, and there's various systems that you can plug into LinkedIn in order to kind of connect with people that might be interested in your product or service. And then obviously lots of other networks of angel investors as well. That's really great to be part of, getting visibility on those platforms too.
So from my side, I've got one like big picture one generally on fundraising, which is work out what you need to be resilient. So on pretty much every podcast when I get asked a question like this, I'm like, make your kind of list of things that you need. Like, do you need a cheerleader? Who is your cheerleader? Who, when you have a bad call, is going to kind of pick you up after that? Because you've got to get your kind of cornerstone investors for the crowdfunding campaign. Don't go in there with, I naively went in thinking, oh, so what we do is we put it out there and then a whole bunch of strangers from the crowd and come and fund us. But you need some cornerstone investors. And so you just need to be really resilient when you're having these conversations, because many of them will turn you down, and so you've got to work out how you're going to remain positive and just keep going. That's like absolutely essential. And then just a very small practical thing, which I think most of the crowdfunding platforms would advise you, is set the target lower, like quite a lot lower than you actually want to raise, because of what Laura was saying. A lot of investors only invest when you get to 100%. So set the target lower, and then make sure you've got those cornerstone investors to get you to kind of 80 or 100%. And then the flywheel starts turning. And that's really exciting when you start overfunding.
Great. I'd like to thank you both so much for your time today. It's been so amazing to catch up and hear about your crowdfunding experiences and advice for other entrepreneurs. So thanks again. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Hey listeners, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe via your favourite podcast app. Leave us a review and please share with colleagues, clients, partners and friends, and we'll catch up with you in the next episode. Until then.